Welcome to Benny Stories, the home of timeless folk tales and powerful life lessons. Hit subscribe, tap the bell, and give a quick thumbs up. Now, let's dive straight into today's story. Amara was a kind of young woman whose presence filled a room before she even spoke. Growing up in a small neighborhood in Lagos, she had always been known as a spark. Teachers loved her curiosity, neighbors admired her cheerfulness, and children followed her like bees chasing sunlight. Her life wasn't perfect. Her father had left when she was 10, and her mother, a market trader, worked tirelessly to put food on the table. But Amara never let hardship dull her glow. She studied under dim kerosene lanterns, helped her mother at the market, and still found time to tutor younger children in her street. People said, "That girl will go far." But behind every spark, there are shadows. Among the smiles and praises, jealousy simmered quietly. Ngozi, Amara's closest childhood friend, loved her deeply but resented her light. Ngozi struggled in school and often felt invisible beside Amara's brilliance. Their friendship was strong, but cracks were forming, cracks that would widen as Amara's star began to rise. The chapter closes with Amara receiving a life-changing letter. She had won a full scholarship to the University of Lagos. Her mother cried tears of joy, neighbors celebrated, and Amara whispered, "This is just the beginning." The spark had caught fire, but little did she know, the shadows were watching. University life was a different world. For Amara, it was like stepping from a narrow alley into a wide, sunlit street. The campus bustled with energy, ambition, and competition. She embraced it all, joining debate clubs, volunteering at student organizations, and excelling in class. Professors noticed her brilliance quickly. But greatness comes at a cost. Amara spent late nights studying in the library, her eyes burning but her resolve unshaken. She skipped parties, missed sleep, and carried the weight of her family's hopes. Every phone call from her mother reminded her of the sacrifices being made at home. She promised herself she wouldn't waste the opportunity. Her dream wasn't just to graduate. It was to build a future where her mother never had to worry about bills again. She imagined buying her a big house with tiled floors and a fridge always filled with food. Yet, even as she shone, she noticed Ngozi's distance. Once her biggest cheerleader, Ngozi barely called anymore. When she did, her voice carried a sharp edge. "You're too busy for us now." Amara brushed it off, thinking it was just adjustment pains. But the seed of resentment was already planted. This chapter paints the picture of ambition versus relationships, how chasing the sky can sometimes leave loved ones behind on the ground. Every bright sun eventually casts shadows. For Amara, her first eclipse came not from an enemy, but from someone she called a sister, Ngozi. Back in Lagos, Ngozi struggled with her own frustrations, a failed admission, mounting pressure at home, and a constant comparison to Amara. People would say, "If only you could be like her." Each word felt like a knife. Ngozi began to resent Amara's success, though she never admitted it out loud. When Amara returned home during a semester break, she noticed a shift. Conversations with Ngozi felt forced. Little jabs slipped out, mocking her university accent, dismissing her ideas, rolling her eyes at Amara's excitement. The real blow came at a gathering of old friends. Ngozi, smiling sweetly, joked, "Amara thinks she's better than us now with a big school life." Everyone laughed, but Amara felt the sting. She laughed too, but deep inside, she wondered, was Ngozi still her friend, or was she slowly becoming her rival? The chapter ends with Amara staring at the night sky, whispering, "Why does my light make her shadow darker?" The foreshadowing was clear. The moon was rising. In her second year, Amara met Chaik, a final-year student in engineering. Tall, intelligent, and warm-hearted, he seemed to admire her not just for her beauty, but for her fire. Unlike others who felt threatened by her shine, Chaik celebrated it. Their romance blossomed quickly. Study sessions turned into late-night walks, cafeteria meals turned into shared laughter, and soon, Amara felt she had found someone who truly saw her. For once, she wasn't just a spark. She was a woman loved deeply. But love in Nigeria often comes with complications. Chaik's family, well-to-do and traditional, didn't hide their disapproval. His mother whispered, "She is from the market. What will she bring into this family?" His father added, "Ambition is good, but too much fire burns a home. Amara didn't hear these words at first. All she saw was Chike's loyalty, his promises, and his insistence that he would fight for her. Still, the tension lingered in the background, ready to ignite. The chapter closes with Amara and Chike dancing at a student gala, their laughter echoing, while unseen eyes, Ngozi's eyes, watch with bitterness from the sidelines. Amara's reputation on campus soared. She organized one of the largest charity drives in the university's history, drawing attention from media outlets and alumni. Her name was everywhere, her face admired, her light undeniable. But in every crowd of admirers, there are whispers that start small but grow louder with repetition. Ngozi, now visiting campus more often, began planting seeds of doubt among Amara's peers. She whispered that Amara was too perfect, that her scholarships came from special favors, that her closeness with professors wasn't as innocent as it seemed. At first, Amara brushed it off. Rumors were part of success. But slowly, she noticed changes. Friends grew distant. Some avoided her eyes, and even professors seemed colder. Chike noticed too, warning her, "Babe, someone is trying to pull you down. Be careful." The chapter ends with Amara standing on stage, receiving applause for her wake, while in the crowd, a different applause was beginning, an applause for her fall. The moon had begun to silence the sky. Rumors have power. They don't walk, they fly. On campus, whispers about Amara began to swell like dry leaves in Harmattan wind. It started small, someone suggesting she was too close to a lecturer who favored her. Then another voice added, she only got that scholarship because she knows people. Soon, Amara's once spotless reputation was painted with invisible stains. At first, she laughed it off. "People will always talk," she told Tyke, though her laughter carried a tremor. But when friends began avoiding her, when her project teammates started excluding her from meetings, she realized the rumors were cutting deeper than she thought. Amara confronted Ngozi one evening, suspecting her involvement. Ngozi smiled sweetly, denied everything, and hugged her tightly. But as she walked away, her phone buzzed, another message sent, another lie planted. This chapter shows how quickly a community can turn against its brightest star, not because of truth, but because envy loves an audience. Amara's spark was flickering, and the moon's shadow was growing longer. Love, once Amara's refuge, began to feel shaky. Chike, though supportive, found himself torn between his heart and his family. His mother's words grew sharper. "That girl will drag you into scandal. Her ambition is louder than her respect." His father echoed, "A woman who shines too bright leaves no light for her husband." Amara noticed a strain. Chike missed calls, canceled dates, and avoided discussing the rumors. One evening, they fought. She accused him of doubting her. He snapped back, "It's not me, it's the noise around us. How long can I keep fighting everyone?" Amara's heart cracked. She realized she wasn't just fighting lies. She was fighting for love, for acceptance, for a future. Chike still loved her, but love under siege is fragile. This chapter explores the loneliness of standing in truth while even the closest person begins to waver. The question lingers, will Chike's love survive the storm, or will the moon silence it too? Every scandal has a climax. For Amara, it came when a private voice recording leaked across campus. It was her voice, edited and twisted, sounding as though she admitted to sleeping her way to success. The fallout was instant. Social media groups exploded with the clip. Hashtags trended on campus. #FakeSpark, #SunOrScam. Students pointed, laughed, and shook their heads in disappointment. Professors distanced themselves. The university suspended her pending investigation. Amara, once celebrated, now walked through campus halls like a ghost. Her spark was not just dim, it was silenced. She stopped attending lectures. She stayed locked in her room, curtains drawn, ashamed of eyes she once met with pride. The chapter ends with her sitting in darkness, scrolling through cool comments on her phone. One line echoed louder than the rest. "Even the brightest sun can be swallowed by the moon." This was a turning point, the silence before either surrender or rebirth. Silence is a weight. For Amara, it was suffocating. She stopped picking her mother's calls, too ashamed to admit what was happening. Her mother, worried, traveled to see her but found only a closed door and a daughter who refused to eat. Friends disappeared. Even acquaintances crossed the street to avoid her. She heard laughter behind her back. Whispers that once used to praise her now laced with venom. The worst wound came from Chike. He sent her a message, not a visit, not a call, saying he needed space. The boy who once promised to stand by her could not withstand the moon's shadow. Amara sat one night on her bed, staring at her phone. The thought crossed her mind, what if I disappeared? Would the world even care? But then she remembered her mother's sacrifices, the faces of the children she once tutored, the neighbors who believed in her. This chapter is heavy with despair but ends with a faint flicker, a memory of her late mother's words. The sun sets, but it always rises again. Every hero faces a choice, surrender or fight. Amara reached that point when she received a letter from the university. The disciplinary panel had been scheduled. Her future will be decided in one hearing. She cried until her body felt empty. But in her emptiness, something stirred, a stubborn spark that refused to die. She opened her old journals, read the dreams she had written as a teenager, and realized, I cannot let lies write my story. Amara drafted a defense. She began collecting evidence, tracing the source of the rumors. She reached out to Zara, a younger student who still believed in her. Together, they began piecing the truth. This chapter ends not in silence, but in fire. Amara looks into the mirror, her eyes swollen but fierce. She whispers, if the moon silence me, then I will rise as the sun again. The breaking point had passed. The fight was about to begin. The panel date drew closer, but instead of folding under fear, Amara chose silence as her weapon. She didn't go out announcing her innocence. She knew talk wouldn't save her. Instead, she worked quietly, gathering fragments of truth. In her room, papers were spread across the floor like battle plans. Screenshots of messages, timestamps of when rumors began, even names of students who could testify. Every piece mattered. She barely ate, but her focus sharpened, like a warrior preparing for war. Her silence unnerved people. Students expected her to cry publicly, to beg for pity. Instead, she walked through campus with her head bowed but unbroken. It confused them, and slowly, curiosity replaced mockery. At night, she prayed, not the desperate cries of before, but steady whispers. God, let truth find a way. This chapter paints Amara's resilience not as loud rebellion, but as quiet resistance, a storm gathering strength in silence. Every fighter needs an ally, and for Amara, it came from an unexpected place. Zara, a first-year student she had once mentored. Zara, shy and often overlooked, remembered how Amara had once defended her during a brutal hazing. To Zara, Amara wasn't just a fallen star. She was a hero, and heroes deserve defenders. One evening, Zara knocked on Amara's door, trembling but determined. I want to help, she said. At first, Amara resisted. What could this small, timid girl do against such powerful lies? But then Zara pulled out a phone and revealed screenshots, evidence of group chats when Ngozi bragged about bringing Amara down. It wasn't enough to clear her name yet, but it was proof the rumors weren't random. Someone was orchestrating them. From that moment, Amara and Zara became a team. Their friendship was a beacon in the darkness, showing that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected hands. The deeper they dug, the clearer it became. Ngozi was a moon that had cast a shadow. She had spread the lies, edited the voice note, and manipulated students to turn against Amara. But proving it wasn't easy. Ngozi was clever. She covered her tracks well. Still, Zara uncovered deleted files through cloud backups, and Amara traced suspicious accounts back to Ngozi's close circle. Piece by piece, the mask began to slip. Amara confronted Ngozi privately. The scene was electric. Amara, once broken, now standing firm, and Ngozi hiding behind false innocence. Why? Amara asked. Ngozi's response was chilling. Because you shine too much. Some of us prefer the dark. The confrontation didn't end with fists or screams, but with Amara walking away, more determined than ever. For the first time, she realized the scandal wasn't about weakness. It was about fear. Ngozi feared her light. This chapter transforms the story from one of despair into a thriller of discovery and revelation. The student forum was crowded. Rumors spread that Amara would speak, and everyone wanted to see if the one silent spark had any light left. She walked in, not with makeup or glamour, but with simplicity. Her voice shook at first, but soon steadied. You've heard lies. You've laughed at rumors. But today, you'll hear my truth. For 30 minutes, Amara told her story, not just of the scandal, but of the pain of carrying dreams on her shoulders, the cruelty of betrayal, and the danger of silence. She didn't beg. She didn't curse. She spoke with dignity. By the end, the whole was silent. Some cried. Some shifted uncomfortably. And for the first time, people began questioning what they had believed. Zara recorded the speech and uploaded it online. Within hours, it began circulating, shared far beyond the campus. What was meant to be her end became the beginning of a movement. This was Amara's return of fire, a rebirth not just a reputation, but a purpose. Chaik returned. Weeks of silence had broken him, and seeing Amara rise again stirred guilt. He came to her with flowers, apologies, and promises. I was weak, but I still love you. Please, let's start again. Amara listened quietly. Once, she would have clung to him, grateful for his return. But now, she was different. The fire that burned inside her no longer needed his validation. She told him, Chaik, love is not abandoning me when the world turned. You loved the spark, but you couldn't stand the smoke when it burned. It was one of the hardest choices of her life, but she let him go. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but they weren't tears of loss. They were tears of strength. She realized her worth wasn't tied to who stood beside her, but to the fire within her. The chapter ends with Amara watching Zara edit another video of her speech, smiling faintly. If love can return, so can light, she thought. The hall was packed. Students whispered excitedly, eager to see the fall of the girl who once shone too brightly. Professors sat stiffly at the front table, pretending neutrality while secretly leaning toward guilt. Amara entered in silence, dressed plainly, holding a slim folder of documents. Beside her sat Zara, nervous but determined. Across the room, Ngozi smirked, her eyes daring Amara to fight. The accusations came one by one: misconduct, dishonesty, immoral behavior. Each allegation was read aloud as though it were fact. For every charge, Ngozi's allies nodded, confident the end had come. Amara's mother sat in the corner, wringing her hands, eyes wet with worry. When it was Amara's turn, she stood, not timidly, but with quiet strength. She didn't shout or beg. She simply laid out her truth. She displayed screenshots, exposing how rumors began from specific accounts tied to Ngozi's circle. She presented the original audio recording, recovered by Zara, which proved the viral clip had been edited. One by one, the lies crumbled under evidence. Gasps echoed through the hall. Even professors exchanged uneasy glances. Ngozi shifted in her seat, her confident smile replaced by a twitch of fear. Amara closed with words that silenced the entire hall. You cannot silence the sun forever. Night always ends, and dawn always comes. By the end, the panel had no choice. Amara was declared innocent. The news spread faster than the lies ever had. Students who once mocked Amara now whispered apologies. Some even cried, ashamed of how easily they had believed rumors. Professors privately expressed regret. On social media, the same platform that mocked her now praised her courage. Back home, her family's house was filled with neighbors carrying food and word of apology. Children she once tutored cheered. Auntie Amara won. Her mother cried tears of joy, repeating, My daughter, I told you the truth will speak for you. But healing wasn't instant. Amara still carried the sting of betrayal. Even with her name cleared, she struggled with trust. Some people still muttered, Where there's smoke, there's fire. Yet a new strength was born in her. Instead of shrinking back, she began walking proudly again. This time, her light wasn't just for herself. It was for every young woman watching her story, every girl told she was too ambitious, every spark that someone tried to silence. The community that once watched her fall now rose with her. Zara uploaded Amara's speech and her exoneration online. Within days, it went viral. Hashtags trended. #SparkAgain, #RiseLikeTheSun, #herlight. Influencers reposted clips praising her resilience. National blogs picked up her story. Even local TV invited her for interviews. What was once shame became testimony. Amara received messages from strangers across the country. A teenage girl bullied in school who said, "You gave me courage to go back to class." A woman in her 30s who confessed, "I was silenced by lies once. Watching you rise helped me heal." Even fathers wrote, "I will teach my daughters to fight like you." Instead of chasing fame, Amara turned her pain into purpose. She launched an anti-cyberbullying initiative on campus, teaching others how to defend themselves from digital lies. What nearly destroyed her became the foundation of her strength. Her spark was no longer just hers. It belonged to everyone who needed light. One evening, Amara received a message from Ngozi. "Meet me. Just once." Against advice, she agreed. They met under the fading dusk, the sky painted in half-light, fitting for sun and moon. Ngozi looked different, no longer proud, but broken. Her voice cracked. "Why didn't you finish me when you had the chance?" Amara studied her old friend, seeing both the girl she grew up with and the woman who betrayed her. She answered softly, "Because I don't need to destroy you to prove who I am. The sun doesn't compete with the moon. Each has its time." Ngozi broke down, confessing how invisible she always felt beside Amara. "I just wanted to matter." For the first time, Amara felt pity, not anger. She didn't embrace her, but she didn't condemn her either. She simply turned and walked away, leaving Ngozi in tears. This chapter teaches a moral heart of the story. True victory is not in revenge, but in rising above. Graduation day arrived. Amara stood in her gown, Zara by her side, her mother watching proudly from the crowd. As her name was called, the audience rose to their feet. The same hallways that once echoed with whispers of shame now thundered with applause. She walked across the stage, head high, no longer the girl crushed by lies, but the woman who conquered them. Cameras flashed, students cheered, and professors who once doubted her clapped with admiration. Later that night, Amara stood alone under the open sky. The moon shone brightly, but so did the sun in her heart. She whispered. Her spark looked like the sun until the moon silenced the sky. But the sun rose again. The story ends with a spark blazing beyond limits, no longer fragile, no longer threatened. She had reclaimed her sky, and nothing could silence it again.